Breaking news. The Atlanta Falcons are making moves, and there's a lot to talk about. Are Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris making the right decisions? Will these changes excite the fans? Let's break it all down. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like button and drop a comment. Do you trust these two to lead the Falcons in the right direction? Now, let's get into it. We've got two key re-signings, a possible trade target, and a free agency situation that could shake up the offensive line. And the biggest question is a former first-round pick heading to Atlanta. First, the confirmed moves. The Falcons have officially re-signed two offensive linemen, Storm Norton and Brandon Parker. Now, these aren't flashy signings, but they matter. Norton played an important role last season, stepping in at tackle when either Jake Matthews or Caleb McGarry got injured. He's a solid backup and just signed a 2-year deal. Depth on the O-line is crucial. You don't want the whole offense falling apart because of one injury. As for Parker, he didn't play at all last season, but the Falcons still believe in him. He's here as an insurance policy, just in case they need him. But let's be honest, that's not the big story here. The real buzz? A major trade rumor. Could Garrett Bradbury be headed to Atlanta? The Falcons might have their eyes on Garrett Bradbury, the Minnesota Vikings starting center. Here's why this is interesting. Minnesota just made big moves on their offensive line, bringing in Ryan Kelly and Will Fries from the Colts. That could make Bradbury the odd man out. If the Vikings trade or release him, the Falcons might jump at the chance to bring him in. Why would Atlanta want Bradbury? Simple. Connections matter. Bradbury's former offensive line coach is now with the Falcons. Players love to reunite with coaches they trust. Plus, Atlanta isn't 100% sold on Ryan Nuzil as their starting center. What's Nuzil's situation? Nuzil is currently Atlanta's starting center, but the Falcons only placed a right of first refusal tender on him. That means if another team offers him a deal, Atlanta can match it or let him go and get a draft pick in return. If the Falcons decide Bradbury is the better option, Nuzil's time in Atlanta might be over. Is Bradbury an upgrade? Bradbury was a first-round pick in 2019 out of NC State, but his career has been up and down. He's had some solid seasons, but he hasn't quite lived up to expectations. Injuries have also been a concern. He's only played a full season 3 times in 6 years. Is that a red flag? Maybe. But if Bradbury can stay healthy, he could be a big improvement for the Falcons. Is Garrett Bradbury the right move? Bradbury played all 17 games last season, which is great. But how well did he actually perform? According to PFF rankings, Bradbury was 27th out of 40 qualifying centers in 2023. For comparison, Drew Dalman, who the Falcons just lost to the Bears, ranked 4th. That's a huge drop-off in talent. So would Bradbury be an upgrade over Ryan Nuzil? Maybe. Nuzil stepped in for 8 games last season when Dalman was out. He wasn't bad, but the Falcons' run game improved a lot when Dalman returned. That suggests Nuzil is a solid backup, but not necessarily the long-term answer at center. If the Falcons aren't fully confident in Nuzil, taking a chance on Bradbury makes sense, if the price is right. How much would it cost? The Vikings are expected to release Bradbury, meaning teams aren't eager to trade for him. If Minnesota could get a decent offer, they probably would have made a deal by now. A situation like this isn't new. Remember when the Jaguars traded Christian Kirk for a 7th-round pick? If that's all it takes for Bradbury, Atlanta might be interested. The Falcons have 2 7th-round picks. Spending one on a veteran center isn't a bad idea. But is Bradbury worth more than that? Probably not. The bigger picture, Falcons offseason moves. The Falcons haven't been quiet this offseason. They've made some key moves, including extending Jake Matthews, keeping their left tackle locked in, signing Divine Diablo to compete with Troy Anderson at linebacker, adding Mike Hughes, likely their CB2, bringing in Leonard Floyd, a much-needed pass rusher. Floyd isn't a superstar, but with 7 and 9 sacks per season, he's a clear upgrade over last year's edge rushers. The Falcons also re-signed key depth pieces like Mike Ford, KhaDarel Hodge, Taquan Graham, Storm Norton, and Brandon Parker. But they've lost some big names. Drew Dalman signed with the Bears. Grady Jarrett followed him to Chicago. Richie Grant signed with the 49ers. Eddie Goldman went to Washington. These are big losses, and while free agency isn't over, the Falcons still have work to do. So what's next? The offensive line is coming together, but center remains a question mark. If the Falcons believe in Nuzul, they might pass on Bradbury and stick with their current plan. But if they have doubts, Bradbury could be a cheap, experienced option to stabilize the position. The real question is, would he actually be an upgrade? And is it worth giving up a late-round pick to bring him in? What do you think, Falcons fans? Should Atlanta take a shot on Bradbury or trust Nuzul to get the job done? Drop your thoughts in the comments. But let's take this even further. If the Falcons do go after Bradbury, what does that tell us about their plans? Because this isn't just about upgrading the center position, it's about protecting their quarterback at all costs. And that raises an even bigger question. Who will be under center for the Falcons in Week 1? Right now, all eyes are on Michael Penix Jr. Michael Penix Jr. and the offensive line, a crucial decision. The rookie quarterback has shown glimpses of his potential, but let's be real, he's still untested at the NFL level. If the Falcons want him to succeed, their top priority should be making sure he plays behind a strong offensive line. That's where Garrett Bradbury comes in. He isn't perfect, but he brings experience and stability, something that could be invaluable for a young quarterback. If Atlanta wants to be a serious playoff contender, securing the center position now, instead of waiting to see if Ryan Nuzul can handle it, might be the smart move. Not just about Penix. The run game matters too. A dominant offensive line wouldn't just help Penix, it would unlock Bijan Robinson in year 2. Last season, Robinson showed why he was a top 10 pick, but the Falcons' run game struggled at times when the offensive line wasn't at its best. If Bradbury can bring stability to the middle of the line, Robinson could be even more explosive in 2025. And let's not forget Tyler Allgeier. A strong 1-2 punch in the backfield is only effective if the offensive line holds up. The big question, what does this say about Nuzul? If the Falcons go after Bradbury, they're basically admitting they don't fully trust Nuzul as the starting center. And that leads to another question. Why didn't they address this earlier in free agency? Did they miscalculate? Did they believe Nuzul was the answer, only to second-guess themselves? Or did they just not expect Drew Dalman to leave? This is something Falcons fans should keep an eye on. If they sign Bradbury, it means the front office is still trying to improve the roster, which is great news. But it might also mean they weren't as prepared for Dalman's departure as they should have been. So what should the Falcons do? Should Atlanta go all in and bring in Bradbury? Or should they trust Nuzul and save their draft picks for other needs? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to stay updated on all the latest Falcons news, make sure to subscribe.